Energy level is high and we are going live. Hello and welcome everyone to the Varsity Tutors StarCourse series, where today we are going to learn what it takes to go to space. There's never been a time with more people and companies and countries going to space, so never been a better time to be interested in going to space. And today you're going to learn all about how to do it. And we've got the perfect teacher for you to tell all about it. Leland Melvin, an astronaut who's been there twice himself, lived on and helped build the International Space Station, is going to tell us what it's all about. And he's got a team here from Mission Control. We've got our cosmic adventure campers here to help us out because, as Leland is going to mention, it takes a whole crew to get everyone ready to go to space. So cosmic adventure campers, you guys ready to say hello? So this is our team from Cosmic Adventure Camp. If you're interested in joining, there's a link on your screen to learn a little bit more about Cosmic Adventure Camp. You too can join our Mission Control team here as well. And as part of what I want to do to make sure you're ready for your mission today, couple things you need to know. One, please keep it interactive. There's a chat box to the right of the screen. We want to hear from you. Leland's going to ask you some questions to find out what you know and think about space and what it takes to get there, so you can answer those there. If at any point you've got questions for Leland, type them in there. And in the last 10 minutes or so, I'm going to interview Leland with the help from some of our Cosmic Adventure campers who will be on screen with me too, to get answers to all those questions. Also, make sure you got a camera nearby. In about a half an hour, we're going to give everybody a chance to lean into the screen and get a space selfie with the man himself who's been there. And if you upload that to Instagram and tag Leland Melvin and Varsity Tutors, you'll be entered to win a spot in Cosmic Adventure Camp. Again, you can learn more about it through the link on your screen, plus an autograph photo and an astronaut patch so you're ready for your next mission. All right, with that said, Mission Control is all waving at me. We have been cleared for liftoff. So let me turn it over to your teacher for today, Astronaut Leland Melvin.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much. And Cosmic Adventure Campers, thank you for coming out and hanging out with us. It's really exciting to be back here again. You know, today we're going to talk about what does it take to get to space. Now, there have been so many things that you have to do and prepare for, but the main things are you need rocket science. You need a rocket to get you up there. The next thing you need is a mission. Just having a rocket going up with no mission means nothing. And then astronaut training and preparation, all the things that I had to do to get ready for my mission. And then you preparing for your mission now to get you ready to go to space one day. So that's what we're going to talk about. You know, when you think about the question, when the United States started working with the key is new technology of rocket science, where did the first rockets launch from? Let me see in the chat. Does anyone know where the first rockets launched from? All right. I see someone that says Florida. No, it wasn't Florida. Oh, someone says California. Someone said Texas. Actually, Houston, Texas. No. One more. Let me see one more. New York. No, we didn't launch from New York. But listen, I think someone did say New Mexico. That's where we launched the rockets from. And, you know, you caught the hint there, new, because the initial rockets were programmed right after the World War II, where White Sands, New Mexico. But pretty soon, those rockets moved to Florida because they want to be close to the equator. And there are other reasons why you want to have a rocket launching from Florida, from a place that's near the water also. So in the next thing, when you think about rocket science, when you toss a ball up as high as you can, what happens to bring it back down to the ground? Does anyone know? I'm looking at the chat right now. What happens to bring it back down to the ground? I see gravity. I see gravity. Are there any other forces affecting that ball coming down besides gravity? Because rocket science, we want to escape gravity to get up to space, right? So the answer is two things. It's gravity pulling you back down. When you get to your math class, 32 feet per second squared is the actual acceleration that gravity is pulling you down. The other thing is air resistance. So the air resistance will keep it from coming down, extremely down from that 32 feet per second squared. So rockets need two things. They need the escape velocity to escape from gravity, and they need to push through that air to get up to space. And so rocket science 101, you think about this. We overcome gravity, we overcome the air resistance or wind resistance, and two laws Newton's first law and Newton's third law. If you look at Newton's first law, an object at rest stays at rest. So if you're standing on something, you stay at rest unless someone pulls something out from you. But the third law is the equal and opposite reaction. So you see the kid swimming through the pool, he's pulling the water back behind him. That's an equal and opposite reaction. So when a rocket pushes all that energy downward, it makes the rocket go up. And so that's Newton's laws. You'll learn about rocket science 101 some more later. And then the next slide, you think about what chemical did we probably use? Well, what was the chemical used to make rockets for the solid rocket booster? I flew in a space shuttle that had solid rocket boosters. Now, this fuel is something that you probably have seen this summer. Does anyone know what it is? Think about picnics. I see oxygen oxide, I see fuel. Think about a chemical that you use every day, probably. You're making hamburgers, you're making hot dogs. What do you put those in? I see carbon dioxide, I see fire. It's aluminum. Aluminum was actually used as the fuel for the solid rocket boosters. And so fuel is really heavy. We have to keep the fuel from holding us back. So the solid rocket booster tanks, actually, after all the fuel is used, we jettison them. We push them off the shuttle and they fall back in the water. So powdered aluminum is actually used as the fuel. All right, so the next question, why do we launch from Florida? Anyone know? The Earth turns at 8,000 miles per hour at the equator. So if you think about launching close to the equator, that rotation of the planet is actually pushing you to space faster. So that spinning motion helps you boost a little bit. So you can use less fuel if you're at the equator, getting that 8,000 miles per hour. So the twirling of the Earth, a string, the rocket taking off, that's how rocket scientists think. How can we use anything to our advantage to make sure that we don't have to use as much fuel? When we launched the Columbus laboratory to the space station, if you look behind me, that laboratory is right there. We put it in the space shuttle. So we have to make sure that we have enough fuel to get that heavy module up to the space station. So anything that we can do to give us an assistance, give us a boost to get there is really important. All right, so the next question that we have for you guys is getting to your space destination. Now, you have to calculate how to actually get there because space is always a moving target. If you look at that first slide, it's the sun and all the planets around it, going around it. So if we were traveling, say, to Chicago, and we wanted to go to the shore of Lake Michigan, we'd have to use GPS, Google Maps, or something to tell us exactly how to get there. And that's static, that's stationary. You know, everything's in this frame of reference on planet Earth. But in space, you think about the Earth is moving, it's going around the planet every 24 hours, right? And I mean, the Earth is going around the sun every 365 days. And then Mars is sometimes behind the sun. So we have to think about, if we're going to go to Mars, we have to target it so that Mars is closest to Earth when we launch. So we're not having to use more fuel than we need to. And so different speeds get you to different orbits. Like Blue Origin just launched this rocket up to a suborbital. They went about 3,000 miles per hour. We have to go 17,000 miles per hour to get up to the space station. They only went up 62 miles. We have to go up to 240 miles. So the speeds are different. So different orbits require different speeds. And then the mission dictates everything that we do. It's all about the mission. So how much fuel do you need? How many consumables like water and oxygen? How many pairs of underwear, flight suits, pants, food, all that stuff is dictated by the mission. So that's what we talk about, mission, having everything ready for the mission. And so arriving at your space destination is, where would you rather land? Now, one day, one of you in this room on this call are going to be going to Mars, going to the moon, maybe going to some other planet. And so where would you rather land? A, the Sea of Tranquility, B, Broken Dreams Ravine, C, Danger Canyon. Anyone know where we are, where that picture is right there? Anyone know? That's the Grand Canyon. And when you think about arriving at space, you have to make sure that you're landing in a place that doesn't have big ravines, craters, rocks, and all those things. So the moon and Mars is full of rocks and craters. And the biggest volcano in the solar system and a canyon is 5 times bigger than the Grand Canyon. So what you see right there in the Grand Canyon and Mars, that's 5 times bigger. And so if you think about the Cosmic Adventure Camp, there's going to be a topography project coming up later. And topography is the levels and the heights of the land and the surface around you. So you want to make sure you land in the right place. And so that's arriving at your space destination. Now, the other thing that's really important is getting home from space. So we're thinking about, the rocket takes us to space. How do you get home safely? And the key is we have to target the landing area, just like we target where we're gonna launch the rocket to get to the space station. And so you have to make sure that it's critical that you get your experiments back safely, get yourself back safely. Let me tell you a little story. When I went to space on my first mission, there were thunderstorms that were coming around Florida at Cape Canaveral. And so we were maybe going to have to not land in Florida, but land at Edwards Air Force Base out in California. But when we went around the planet every 90 minutes, you could actually see Florida, and I could see that the clouds were actually away from the land and off the coast. So we knew we could land back. So the weather conditions are really important. And it's really, really powerful that when you go to space, you have to target and have backup plans for where you're going to actually land. And like I say, we were able to land in this one place, but it cost $1 million if we land in California to fly the shuttle from California back to Florida. So you really want to wait till the last minute to see if you have to divert to somewhere like that. So the next question I want to ask you guys, we talked about getting home. How many people work in mission control for each NASA mission? Does anyone know? I'm looking at the chat right now. Anyone know? Is it A, 1? Is it B, 1 for each astronaut? I see someone wrote 150. Is it D, 50? I see a couple of answers there. Well, when you think about MCC, the Mission Control Center, that's where everyone's working to make sure that the mission is launching safely while you're on orbit, that everything's working. And there's so many people in there. There's 150 people in there. You can't take breaks. People have to work around the clock while the mission's going on, because if something happens in space, we have to have those scientists and engineers solving those problems. And some of the areas, if you look at those monitors and if you look at the consoles where people are sitting, that's actually places where you do different disciplines. So the one area is called the ECLS system, Environmental Control and Life Support System. That's where they monitor the breathing and the water and all the things on orbit with telemetry coming down from the space station. The DPS system, the digital processing system, the computers, all the computers working properly. GNC, guidance, navigation, and control. How do you fire the rockets just right so that you can navigate and have control of the vehicle so that it gets to the space station properly and it's in the right orientation? So these 3-letter identifiers are the consoles that people in mission control sit at to make sure that all the right data gets up to the shuttle and gets back down too. And so that's 150 people. And it's even more than that. It's more people that are out of mission control that are giving even more information back to the people in there. So my 2 missions, we talk about mission. Everything is about the mission. I had 2 missions. My first one was to take this Columbus laboratory to the space station. I mentioned that earlier, and we were building the space station by 1 module. So that was my first mission. I worked the robotic arm. I grabbed the Columbus out of the payload bay, attached it to the space station, and that was my primary mission objective. We have primary, secondary, and tertiary mission objectives, but the primary one was to get that installed because the Europeans have been waiting, 10 years to get it installed to the space station. And we got that installed. They were very happy. Second mission was to go up and take spare parts because My second mission was in 2009. And in 2011, we had the last shuttle launch called STS-135, the 135th shuttle flight going to the space station. And so we had to get all the heavy parts up to the space station before we retired the shuttle. And now we have SpaceX, we have Virgin Galactic, we have other carriers that are going to be part of this mission. But now the shuttle is in museums that you can go see and take a look at. And so the next thing I want to talk about, on a mission, we have had missions throughout the decades. You think about the Mercury, the Gemini program, they were astronauts that were taking risk. I mean, I'm going to say they were taking calculated risks because we had people doing the calculations, but they went to places we had never been before. And then we studied systems. We figured out how to get docking and rendezvous going so you can have your capsule docking to the main compartment. We went to the moon. We walked on the moon in 1969, July 20th, 1969. It was an incredible moment. We had to come off the lunar surface and then dock back to our command module and then come home. So these were different kinds of missions, trying to see what we could do, see what we could find. And then we went to the International Space Station. Now you are going to be going to Mars one day or back to the moon. And I think about how far can we go as astronauts? You know, Artemis is gearing up to go to the moon, and we're searching for water, we're searching for life, we're searching for all these different things. And I think the rovers right now on Mars Perseverance, we have a helicopter on Mars that's flying around. The first time a helicopter flew on another planet. And so all these things are needed to find out and investigate solutions to getting humans to the moon and Mars one day. And so when I think about future missions are going to be really critical for solving these things. Can we grow food? Can we find water? Can we create fuel from the in situ, the stuff that's on the planet itself? And can we build a home? Right now, we have never lived on another celestial body or planet. We haven't lived on the moon. We just walked on the moon, bounced around a little bit, came back home. We've only sent rovers out to Mars. And so at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to do all these things. But the things that allow us to do this is science and engineering. Space travel is truly about these two things. And if you're a scientist or an engineer, you figure out how to solve problems. So some of our cosmic campers were studying space and science this summer. Some of them were going to the pool. You know, a problem is, how do I get to the pool? Use your GPS or use, other systems to help you get there. But solving problems is what we do as scientists and engineers. And I think about my friend, Mike Hopkins here. He was up on the International Space Station. Mike Hopkins grew pak choi. This is a food that he grew, and he's smelling the pak choi right there. So you want to think about growing food off planet. We're going to have to do that to survive as a species. And so when I think about pak choi and growing food and all of that, the question I have for you is, where do astronauts get their food when they're in space? Let me see your answers in chat. Where do you get your food when you're in space? Question, do you think atmosphere? Okay, answer, if you guys can answer this question for me. Okay, I see from Earth. ISS, they bring it with them. Great answers. Yeah, we send it up in the shuttle. We send it up in the SpaceX vehicle. So we have to get our planet food from the planet. Everything comes from the planet. And some of you said refrigerator and cupboard, but that's not right. So everything is packed for us. There's no food source in space. Even on Mars, we hope we can find food up there one day. But right now, we don't think there's anything growing. Maybe some bacteria that we probably don't want to eat, right? And then I think about, it's packed for you. It's in containers. We have resupply vehicles going up to the space station, dropping off food and water and these things. And we also have a recycling system on the space station, because on the space station, everything from your humidity, the humidity from your sweat, your urine that you pee in the toilet, all of these things are actually recycled on the International Space Station. So you may be drinking something that came out of you from sweat or pee or something else. And it's really important that we have these types of systems so that we can be conservationists, so that we can conserve the mass of things that have to come up there. The other thing that we can't do right now is wash clothes in space. And so we're working with Tide to make a detergent that uses less water, because you have to work out every day for 2 hours. And while you're working out, you use your shirt 7 times, you use your shorts 5 times, use your socks 7 times before you throw them away. We don't have a way to clean them in space. And so if we go to the moon or Mars, we're going to have to learn how to clean our clothes, or we're not going to have enough fuel or water or other consumables that we take up there to keep us alive. So we have to learn how to clean our clothes in space. And then the next thing I want to ask you guys is about preparation. Everything that we do to prepare as an astronaut is about the mission. So training, supplies, it's all geared towards making sure that the mission is successful. And remember, I mentioned primary mission objective. Well, that's what we have to do, have a primary mission objective so that that can be successful. And when I think about preparation, I'm asking you, what is the hardest thing do you think about living or working in space? Let me see your answers in the chat. Let's see here. Anyone know what the hardest thing that was for me living in space? Isolation, I see. Breathing. Where do you launch in your first mission? Oxygen, less resources, floating, breathing. Floating was actually pretty cool. That wasn't hard. It's easy. 0G, food. Your food flies away. Yeah, your food actually flies away from you. If you're sitting there preparing something and you turn away, your food can have just a little micro acceleration on it where it's actually floating away from you. And if it goes above your eye line, you actually don't even look up. You just look around to see it. Most of the time, if you lose something, you just look up and it's above your head. So it's really important, though, that when you prepare for space, you have doctors that work with us to give us glasses, because in space, the interocular pressure in your brain, in your head, it causes things to shift to where your eyes can actually change shape. So if you don't wear glasses on the ground, we have different prescription lenses in space. So if your eyes move this amount, you can wear a 1X glasses, or if they move that amount, you can wear 2X or 3X or 4X. And so we're always prepared to have what we need in space. We have dietitians working with us to see how many calories we need to eat. I think I needed about 2,700 calories a day. So we went through a plan for the different types of food that I like to eat, and they packed that up very carefully and sent it up to space. And so it's really cool that, we have all these really cool and smart people that are helping us plan for our missions. And you'll have those same people with you when you get ready for that. So we have the preparation, and then we also have training and preparation. So when you look at this slide, you see, if you go to the next slide for me, Brian, it's backup plans go 3 deep. All right. So we talked about preparation. If something happens to one of the computers, we have 3 or 4 of the computers to take the place of that computer if it fails. And so it's called 3 deep. We have 3 failures that can happen before we can't make it home. And we have to understand how to use all those different systems to be safe when we're traveling in space. And so astronaut training also, if you look at the middle picture, that's Sonny Williams and I training in the wilderness. Because if you're flying in this jet that we fly to train for space flight, what if we had to eject out? What if something happened to the jet? We had to eject out of it and parachute down in a remote area. We would want to be able to survive. And so we're learning how to survive off the land, eating bugs and finding water and all these things to survive. And then we also have to know how to fix pretty much anything that happens in space. And so I remember when I was on my first mission, and we had a gentleman, one of our colleagues, Stan Love, he was in this thing called a portable foot restraint. And he was holding on to this payload that weighed about 1,000 pounds. And I was flying him around on the robotic arm holding this payload. Well, his portable foot restraint was turned in the wrong direction. So by the time we got to the other end of the space station, he wouldn't have been able to install it correctly. So we had to figure out on the fly how to fix the orientation of his foot plate, or we wouldn't have been able to get out there and get him back in time, because you only have like 7 hours of oxygen in your suit. And so you're having to always figure things out on the fly. We call them being a quick study, being able to figure it out, learn your systems, and get it done. So that's another part about astronaut training and preparation that's very important to ensure that we have a safe operation on the mission. Another question for you guys. When it's your turn in space, what do you want to learn? Let me see in the panel. What do you want to learn in the panel? I see so many questions coming in. You want to learn more about aliens, okay? I want to learn what dust feels like. If they're aliens, how do we affect space, rovers, galaxies, how plants grow in space, where the black hole is in space. There are plenty of black holes. And so those are very, very good answers. And I think, when we think about space exploration, it's all about the mission, as we said. And the mission is usually to build something or to learn something. And lots of times it's about learning and building about how we can coexist in this environment, in this rocket or in this planet. And so that's a really important thing. Those are great answers that you guys gave. And then this next thing I want to say, when you prepare for your mission, I think it's about like hands-on, experiential, like building skateboards right now, like figuring out how to do your math and your geometry, learning about black holes. The goal is to learn something and to build something. The key to being involved in the next generation of space travel is that you are a doer, you are a creator, you are a person that can think out of the box, can think about things that haven't been done before. And for future astronauts, they won't just be rocket scientists or rocket pilots. They'll be important to building and learning the science and engineering to make us have communities in space. And so I think about everything that you're doing right now to get ready. Hey, Brian, this cosmic camp is getting these kids excited and ready to be that next generation of explorers. And I think I'm going to be sitting in my rocket chair looking at them launch to Mars and to the moon and maybe up to a black hole one day. So you guys are awesome. Thank you. Can't wait to see you out there. And let's do some selfies, man.
Yeah, this generation is going to take us some amazing places. And thank you for such great advice. Hopefully, everybody, I was taking good notes. It's a summer. You guys didn't have to necessarily take notes, but one of the things that I thought was really fascinating that you were mentioning, Leland, is kind of the idea that one, it's all about the mission, right? They're only right. They've got 150 people working around the clock to make sure that your mission goes well. They're only going to have those people doing that if the mission is learning something, building something. And so, for those who want to be like Leland at some point, Leland got to go to space, but his job wasn't to go to space. It was to help build out the Columbus Laboratory, help us learn new things. And so, if you want to get started now on your mission, it's be the kind of person who's always learning, who's figuring out how to build things and tinker, like Leland was talking about. And so for those who weren't taking notes or just having fun, I took notes so you didn't have to. And that's what I took away from it. So we'll give you plenty of opportunities to give more takeaways, Leland. But like Leland mentioned, everybody, it's time to take a space selfie with Leland Melvin, the astronaut himself. So make sure you guys get those cameras out and ready. I'm going to give you a couple of quick instructions while you're logging into the phone and getting yourself set up. I know people dress up for these classes. So you're probably getting your helmet just right and your flight suit. If you upload your photo to Instagram, tag Leland Melvin and Varsity Tutors. And there, the handles will be up on the screen at the end, but it's just at Leland Melvin, at Varsity Tutors. You'll be entered to win a spot in Cosmic Adventure Camp. So you too can be one of those folks helping us out at Mission Control here on the screen at the beginning of class. And an autograph photo, an astronaut patch, like the patches that Leland has on his flight suit there that we're also envious of. So make sure you get ready for your picture there. Leland, I'm going to turn it back to you. Let's get those pictures for everybody.
All right. You guys get your cameras ready. We're going to get this space selfie. All right. Let's do this. Now, we're going to do 2 pictures. One is going to be looking straight at the camera with a thumbs up. So I'm going to give you a countdown. Thumbs up. Look straight at the camera. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, I think we got that one, Brian. The last one we're going to do is we're going to look up to space. So turn whichever way you want to, point up to space, and we're going to do a selfie. So point and look up, but kind of look at the camera too. All right, ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, what do you think, Brian?
Thank you. That's my favorite one, is everybody looking up. Our Instagram feed will be full of those. So thanks. Hopefully everybody got amazing questions. Again, upload those to Instagram, tag Varsity Tutors and Leland Melvin. You got a chance to win. It's time to answer some of your questions. And you guys have been asking amazing questions. I feel bad for Leland. He doesn't get to read the questions. They're just going so fast, whereas we've got a team getting them moving. That's why, it takes a mission control team of many people to make sure an astronaut's mission goes well, even if it's, not a space mission, but it's a class. Two, I'm going to get to. I'm going to get to one myself. One is, a lot of people were asking, hey, how can we tell our parents about Cosmic Adventure Camp? If you want to, I think the best advice I have is, someone who got my parents to do things for me, sometimes, is if you tell them you want to learn more things, that can be really helpful. Hey, I took this great class. I want to take more. I want to learn more. I learned about Leland telling me to eat my green beans and my vegetables and all those kind of things. I think the best way to talk to your parents is say, hey, I want to learn more. I'm really excited about learning more science, and that ought to go really well. So that's one question people ask there. Another really big one, Leland, I love, and thank you guys for so many good questions, is you talked about, the fact that space does kind of crazy things to your body. It changes the shape of your eyes, and you need to work out 2 hours a day, all those kind of things, just to be able to stay normal because of all the different things there. And you talked about all the backup planning that NASA put you guys through. One of my favorite questions was, what happens if an astronaut gets sick up there or gets injured up there? What are the kinds of backup plans, and how did they train you for those?
That's a good question. My first mission, we didn't have a doctor on our crew. And so I volunteered to be the crew medical officer. And so they trained me. I went to an emergency room. They trained me how to take care of lacerations. So if someone gets cut, I learned how to, stitch things up. If you had stuff coming in your eyes, I learned how to use this eye flush to flush things out. And we have this crew medical guide that tells you how to solve a lot of problems. Lots of times when something happens, you still have communication with the ground. So you can actually talk to an actual doctor on the ground, and he will or she will step you through the processes for helping fix someone. But if something really bad happens to someone, we can bring them back home. But we do have a lot of things on the space shuttle and the space station. Like if someone broke their arm, we could set the arm and keep it, immobilized until we got back home. The other thing that's really hard on the body is when you get to space, if you don't use the bathroom, number one. So if you don't do number one, then the fluid in the urine in your bladder can actually float around in your stomach, and you don't even feel like you have to use the bathroom. But if the fluid keeps going in your bladder can actually rupture. So you have to do a catheter and get that fluid out. So that's something that we train to do on the ground also as astronauts. And so it's really important that you get those parts done, because you want to make sure that your crewmates are safe and sound if anything happens to them in space. That's a very good question, Brian.
Thank you. And whoever asked it, thank you. It's fascinating the things you guys have to prepare for. And, if there were, probably, seven people on your mission, and then, a handful more on the ISS, there aren't that many people that ask for help if you need help. And so,
Right.
I think it's really amazing the training they put you through to make sure you can be really self-sufficient. At least, it's not, you can't call an Uber and have them come pick you up, or, call your mom and say, I'm having a bad time, come get me. So you guys,
we do have experts all over the world that mission control, we talked about MCC, Mission Control Center, will get all that information, and the flight director, and there's an astronaut called a Capcom who will send that information up. They will package it in a way that's very short and to the point, because we don't have a lot of time to be sitting on the mic talking back and forth when we're having to work in space.
That's amazing. And I think just a credit to all the people on the ground. You guys get the glory, but there are a lot of people on the ground making it happen. So speaking of mission control, we've got a member of our in-house mission control here, Sophie from Cosmic Adventure Camp, wants to ask you a question here. So let's pop her up on screen here, and Sophie, take it away.
Hello.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi. So I want to go to space when I'm older, so I just want to go straight to Mars. So my question is, do you have a solution for how we're going to get food or oxygen into the spaceship? Because you said that our suits only have like 7 hours of oxygen, and it takes a few months. I think it was 7 months for Perseverance to get to Mars, to get to Mars. And I don't think we have 7 months of oxygen in suits. It would be way too heavy, and you can't really walk with it. And how do you get food? It's too much.
That's a very good question, Sophie. So when I talked about 7 hours of oxygen in the suit, that's in the EVA suit, the extravehicular activity suit. When you're doing a spacewalk, when you go outside the space station or the space shuttle, you're floating around, and your suit is your own little spaceship. It has water bag in there. You have temperature, hot and cold. You have visors that keep the sun out. So that's how you live and work outside of the vehicle. If we were traveling to Mars for that 7 or 8 month trip, we would be in the actual spaceship that would have enough oxygen, food, water, and everything in that you would need to get to the planet safely. So it's only in the EVA suits that only have 7 to 8 hours of oxygen. And we wouldn't be flying in those suits inside the rocket itself. We would use, all the oxygen and water and food inside of the rocket ship. Good question. Very good question.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Sophie. And that actually kind of leads to another really common question. I think people have been following the news and seeing all these different groups go up to space, getting ready for Artemis and everything. So I'm going to make it a two-parter for you, because people have been asking different variations of it. One, do you think we'll ever be able to colonize the moon or Mars? And two, how do we get ready for sending? If it's going to take, several months to get the first person to Mars, what kind of things are we doing right now to make sure that it's safe and we're ready and they have oxygen and know how to get more if they need it? The ISS is not a quick trip, but it's not a super long trip. So kind of a two-part. What are we doing to get ready for those missions? And do you think we'll ever kind of set up shop permanently, sort of like we have on the ISS?
So since probably over the last 15 to 20 years, people have been doing research, working on how will we leave our planet and live somewhere else in our solar system. And so there have been scientists and engineers. We talked about science and engineering are the two things that are critical to us solving these problems for how much oxygen can we take with us, how much oxygen can we make there, and then, or how many supply ships do we send before we actually land that have oxygen, food, water, and everything in there. So it's almost like sending your kitchen and your, all your systems and things before you get there. And then you would also want to know that once those things landed there, that you would send back an indication that everything's intact. So if something crash landed and you lost, a ton of water and a ton of food and a ton of, supplies, that you would know that you would need to launch another one before you launch the crew humans to get there. And so when you think about the movie, what was a movie with Matt Damon? What is it, Mars? I can't remember the name of the movie.
The
But
Martian.
anyway, The Martian, thank you. He had to grow potatoes because that storm came through and wiped out a lot of the food and things that he needed to survive. And so he figured out how to, survive until he put some other things together, used his science and engineering to get on the rocket and get back home. So that's what we do. We pre-position things. We learn how to grow things. If we can't grow things, we try to get everything there that we need and keep sending supply vehicles there. That's a good question.
Very good question. And we've got more coming. Thanks to all of you for asking such great questions. We've got one more from our live studio audience. Avery had a great question. In addition to some, what is that? Like, that's augmented reality. Sorry, AR. So Avery, fire away. And what's your question for Leland?
Well, Do you want me to take off the alien?
No, leave it on. I like it, Avery. It's so freaking cool. And I love your flight suit too.
Thanks. I'm gonna stand up so I can show off my costume. So my first question is, I put it in the QA, whatever it's called, but can you do gymnastics in space?
Oh my goodness, Avery. Do you know that when you go to space, especially like up in the space station with those really big modules, you can do gymnastics, you can do flipping, you can be like Simone Biles and do these turns and flips and things, but you could also play stupid astronaut tricks where one astronaut gets in a ball, so I can ball up in a ball, and the other 4 or 5 astronauts, they line up like pins, and then another astronaut pushes the ball astronaut down and knocks down the pin astronaut. So you're actually bowling with astronauts in space. So gymnastics, stupid astronaut tricks, you can do it all.
Nice. Great question, Avery. Thank you so much. So timely too, with the Olympics going on and all that. I think all of us would be much better athletes with a lot less gravity. So I love that. Hey, another series of questions for you, Leo. And a lot of people wanted to know, as you know, since you were on the shuttle missions to the ISS and all those, and I think, you know, for most of us, you're our favorite astronaut. No offense to Neil Armstrong or any of those. Sorry, Buzz. One, do you think the shuttle program will ever come back? 2, would you ever go back to space, or do you think you'll ever go back? And then 3, if you got a chance to go back, where would you want to go and what would you want to learn, since you asked everybody that question? So you and the shuttles, do we think you guys are going back up? And if so, just to kind of indulge us, what would you want to do? What would you want to learn?
Great. So the shuttles are in museums, so you guys can learn about that older technology. Those computers in the shuttle had less operating power than my watch does right now. Okay. So we wanted to upgrade everything to faster computers, rockets that were more streamlined, that had less moving parts and all these things, less complicated. And so I think I would want to go, if I had a chance to go back to space, I would want to go live on Mars, and I would want to take my dogs with me. I don't know if people have seen my dogs, but I've got a picture of my 2 dogs that were like kind of hanging out with me. And I think if we're going to be humans living on other places, we have to take our families with us, you know, whether it's our mom and dad or sister and brother or wives and kids or our pets. And so I would like to go to Mars. I think we've been to the moon before. You know, SpaceX, we have SLS, the NASA Space Launch System, Starship with SpaceX. You know, we've got a lot of companies that are vying to get off the planet with their technology. And I think one day, one of you in this room, and maybe you'll take me with you and my pups, will go to Mars. And so that's where I want to go. And the reason I want to go there is because it'll be the first time someone getting to another planet. And I think that finding that way of getting all the systems and things right to live there for almost a year, because you have to wait for Mars and Earth to line up again to get home the fastest way possible. So it's like almost a 3-year mission.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. You know, you had mentioned the idea that space, it's always a moving target. So you're going to be there a long time. There's just no easy way back from Mars, because we have to wait until the planets kind of align again and do all those calculations of where's Mars going to be when you leave it? Where's Earth going to be when you get back, and all those kind of things. So long mission, and it would be really cool for you to bring the dogs. We get a lot of questions about Leland's dogs. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet them yet, check out his official NASA photo online, or you'll see his Instagram handle up in just a second, so that you know, you're able to follow him, check out some of the pictures that of his cool you know, endeavors and missions and things, and those with the dogs too. All right, one more from our live studio audience. We've got Henry here with a question for Leland. Henry, what do you want to ask Leland?
Hey, Henry, stand up. Let us see your suit. I want to see your suit.
What's the best piece of advice you have for a kid like me who wants to be an astronaut?
Awesome. I love your suit, Henry. The biggest thing that I think for any kid to start thinking about right now to be an astronaut is to be curious, is to create things, is to build things. If you have a problem, you want to solve a problem, figure out how to do it yourself. You know, you can get a little help from people, maybe Google something, but building and creating things, because as an astronaut in space, if something breaks, we have got to fix it. And so the more you can learn about fixing and creating things right now, the better astronaut you'll be in space. Also working together with other people in teams, working together with your friends, with your family, with people you don't even know, trying different foods. We have different foods in space, you know? And so just being a person who understands the entire planet and the solar system. So always learning, always playing, always building, always creating, and doing it with a smile on your face.
Man, great question, Henry. Even better answer, Leland. That's kind of what it's all about, right? We talked about, you know, today's theme was what it takes to get to space, and you know what it takes. It takes rocket science, and you've got to be curious to help us figure out how are we going to use those Newton's forces we talked about earlier. How do we get even more power so that we can take even more cargo with us, so we can set up bases on the moon and Mars and all those kind of things. It takes a mission, and so, you know, we need to want to learn or build something. We need people who are able to fulfill all of that. It takes a lot of preparation. You can start now by being curious, tinkering, all those kind of things. So what a great question and answer to wrap us up here. So Leland, any final thoughts? I mean, that was pretty amazing, but any final thoughts before we turn people loose to get their selfies up on Instagram?
Hey, Brian, I think the biggest thing for us to think about these days, with all these different things going on in the world, but just to know that you keep belief in yourself, and you know that the mission is possible. We don't want to do a mission impossible. The mission is possible with a positive outlook, working hard, bringing the family, the team together to solve problems. You can do anything you put your mind to. So mission possible, and Godspeed on the journey.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Such great advice. We're excited to see, one, what your Instagram photos look like, but two, where you're going to take space travel. It's really cool to be able to have an opportunity to talk to the kids who are going to take us farther than we ever dreamed. You know, tomorrow's reality is today's science fiction. You guys are going to be a huge part of that. So thanks, Leland, for all of your advice, insight, enthusiasm, and just kind of positive spirit. Thanks to all of you for some really amazing questions and participation. It's just so fun to watch the chat go crazy throughout these lessons. As promised, here's the information so you guys can join that contest and get that autograph photo, an astronaut patch, and a spot in Cosmic Adventure Camp. If you want to learn more about Cosmic Adventure Camp, there's a link on your screen. Starting in September, it'll become a club, so you can meet weekly throughout the school year. So if your summer is already busy, there's still an opportunity to get involved. So huge thanks to all of you. Leland, I know we're going to see you back in about a month or so. So if you guys have friends that want to learn from a real live astronaut, send them back, and we got more of these coming up, and we'll see everybody soon. Thanks, everybody.